First Contact Fallout. Supreme Commander Tezak of the Kelveri Dominion stood motionless before the tactical display, his four eyes fixed on the catastrophic data scrolling across the screen. The 7-foot insectoid's normally iridescent carapace had dulled to an ashen gray, a physiological response to extreme stress among his species. Around him, the command bridge of the dreadnought Eternal Glory was unnaturally quiet, save for the occasional ping of emergency alerts. "Play it again," he mandated, mandibles clicking in agitation. "Show me how the mightiest battle group in the Outer Rim was decimated by a species that barely escaped their own atmosphere a century ago." His second-in-command, Sub-Commander Vexra, hesitated before complying. The holographic display reset and began showing the battle sequence that had occurred 16 hours prior. The Kelveri invasion force, 200 warships strong, approached the human colony on Proxima Centauri with overwhelming confidence. The humans had established this outpost just 30 years ago, and intelligence suggested minimal defenses. The recording showed the initial Kelveri barrage, a standard opening move that would typically obliterate any defensive installations. Instead, energy shields flared to life around the human settlement. Shields that should have been far beyond human technological capabilities. "Pause," Tezak commanded. "Our intelligence indicated they possessed no such defensive technology. How did we miss this?" "Unknown, Supreme Commander," Vexra replied, her antennae twitching nervously. "The humans have been unpredictable in their technological development." Tezak clicked his mandibles in frustration. "Continue." The recording resumed, showing the emergence of 42 human vessels from behind Proxima Centauri's second planet. They were smaller than the Kelveri warships, but moved with astonishing speed and precision. What followed was not a battle, but a slaughter. The human ships executed maneuvers that defied known physics, their weapons cutting through Kelveri shields like they weren't even there. Within 3 hours, 173 Kelveri vessels had been destroyed or disabled. The remaining ships, including the Eternal Glory, had barely escaped through emergency warp jumps. "Stop." Tezak's voice was hollow. "Tactical Officer Krill, explain to me how a primitive species obliterated our fleet." Tactical Officer Krill stepped forward, his exoskeletal plates clicking together as he moved. "Supreme Commander, preliminary analysis suggests the humans employed gravitational manipulation technology we've never encountered before. They were able to create localized gravity wells that disabled our drives and distorted our shield harmonics. Such technology would require energy outputs beyond what their civilization could possibly generate," Tezak countered. "Evidently not, Supreme Commander," Krill responded. "And there's something else." He hesitated. "Speak freely, officer." The human ships bore markings identifying them as part of something called the Earth Border Patrol. Based on intercepted communications, this appears to be a minor defensive force. The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. "You're suggesting," Tezak said slowly, "that we didn't even face their military." "Correct, Supreme Commander. According to our Intelligence Division's hasty analysis of their communications, what we encountered was equivalent to a customs enforcement unit." Tezak turned away, struggling to process this information. The Kelveri Dominion had conquered 17 star systems over the past 3 centuries. Their military doctrine, technology, and tactics were refined through generations of warfare. The idea that a comparatively young species could so thoroughly outclass them was inconceivable. "We need to report to the Imperial Council," he finally said. "But first, I want all available data on human military structure. If what we faced was merely their border patrol, I need to understand what their actual defense forces look like." On the other side of the conflict, Captain Maya Chen of the Earth Border Patrol vessel Vigilant was drafting her report to Fleet Command. The attack by the insectoid species, which intelligence had identified as the Kelveri, had been unexpected but not unmanageable. "Captain," her XO, Lieutenant Commander Raj Patel, approached her station. "Final casualty report." Chen looked up, her expression somber. How bad? 12 dead across the patrol fleet. 37 injured, most of them from the horizon, when that cruiser got a lucky shot through their port shield. Chen nodded, feeling the weight of those losses. And the colony? No civilian casualties. Minor damage to the agricultural sector, but the shields held for the population centers. Small mercies, Chen murmured. And the Kelvary losses, nearly complete. The survivors jumped out system about 3 hours ago. Intelligence is tracking their warp signatures back toward what we believe is their territory. Chen sighed, leaning back in her command chair. The border patrol wasn't designed for full-scale warfare. That was the domain of the Earth Defense Force. But humans had learned the hard way, through centuries of their own conflicts, that you don't underfund your first line of defense. Communications, she called out. Status on the quantum link to Earth Command. Link established, Captain. Admiral Winters is standing by. Chen stood, straightening her uniform. Put her through to my ready room. Moments later, Chen faced the holographic projection of Admiral Helena Winters, commander of Earth's Combined Defense Forces. Captain Chen, the Admiral greeted her. I've reviewed your preliminary report. Exemplary work protecting our colony. Thank you, Admiral, but it shouldn't have been necessary. Our intelligence missed an entire alien empire on our doorstep. Yes, Winters frowned. That's being addressed. What's your assessment of their capabilities? Chen considered carefully. Technologically, they're advanced, on par with our developments from about 50 years ago. Their tactical doctrine is rigid, predictable. They clearly haven't faced a serious military challenge in generations. And their response to defeat? Shock, primarily. I don't think they've experienced it before. Their retreat was disorganized, almost panicked. Admiral Winters nodded slowly. That tracks with what we're seeing. Our quantum entanglement listeners are picking up massive communication surges throughout their territory. Something big is happening. Will the Defense Force be deployed? Chen asked. Not yet. The President wants to avoid escalation if possible. For now, we're doubling Border Patrol presence in all frontier systems and putting the Defense Force on heightened alert. The 7th Fleet is being moved to Proxima Centauri as a precaution. Chen's eyes widened slightly. The 7th Fleet comprised over 500 warships, including 3 of Earth's planet-killer dreadnoughts. It was a force capable of sterilizing entire star systems. That seems excessive, Admiral. Winters' expression hardened. History has taught us that showing weakness to expansionist empires is never wise, Captain. We won't strike first, but if the Kelvary return, they need to understand exactly what they're facing. After the communication ended, Chen returned to the bridge, a new weight on her shoulders. The Border Patrol's encounter with the Kelvary had been a skirmish, barely a footnote in military terms. But if the Defense Force became involved, it could spark a war that would reshape the galactic neighborhood. Back aboard the Eternal Glory, Supreme Commander Tezak was reviewing the intelligence reports with growing horror. The humans hadn't just developed shield technology and gravity manipulation. They had weapons systems the Kelvary had never even theorized. This can't be accurate, he muttered, mandibles clicking rapidly. Intelligence Officer Mekra, a female with unusually dark carapace markings, met his gaze steadily. I verified the data personally. Supreme Commander. The humans possess approximately 15,000 military vessels across various classifications. Their defense force comprises 12 fleets, each larger than the battle group we lost today. Impossible, Tezak insisted. No species produces military assets at such scale without conquest as the objective. Yet they've remained within their solar system and a handful of colony worlds. Their history may provide insight, Mekra suggested. Humans evolved on a planet with unusually high biodiversity and environmental challenges. They spent millennia fighting among themselves before achieving unity. Their military doctrine reflects a species that expects threats from all directions. Tezak absorbed this, his compound eyes reflecting the scrolling data. So we awakened a sleeping predator. An apt metaphor, Supreme Commander. A communication alert interrupted them. Supreme Commander, the communications officer called out. Priority message from the Imperial Council. They're ordering us to return to the homeworld immediately. Tezek rose, his towering frame casting a long shadow across the command bridge. Plot a course for Kelvar Prime. Maximum warp. As the dreadnought prepared to jump, Tezek gazed out at the stars, contemplating the Dominion's future. For centuries, the Kelvari had expanded unchallenged, their superiority assumed as cosmic law. Now they faced a species that had defeated their finest warriors with what amounted to a police force. The implications were clear and terrifying. The Kelvari Dominion had inadvertently challenged a civilization far more powerful than their own, and they had yet to see humanity's true military might. A cold certainty settled in Tezek's mind. The Dominion stood at a crossroads. Adapt to this new reality or face extinction. And based on what he'd seen of humans, they wouldn't grant much time for the Kelvari to decide. The diplomatic gambit. The Grand Imperial Palace on Kelvar Prime had stood for 15 centuries, its crystalline spires reaching toward the twin moons that orbited the Kelvari homeworld. Inside the council chamber, Supreme Commander Tezek faced the 7-member Imperial Council, the highest authority in the Dominion. Empress Sulara, whose carapace bore the royal blue markings of the ancient bloodline, sat at the center. She had ruled for nearly 2 centuries and had overseen the conquest of 8 star systems. Now she looked diminished, her compound eyes fixed on the holographic display showing the devastation of their fleet. In 14 generations, we have never known such defeat, she said, her voice carrying the harmonic undertones that denoted imperial authority. You present troubling information, Supreme Commander. Tezek lowered his head in deference. The data is accurate, Your Luminance. The human border forces decimated our battle group using technology we cannot counter. Their main military remains unengaged. High General Vrask, a veteran of countless campaigns, clicked his mandibles in frustration. This assessment is flawed. No species abandons conquest when possessing such military advantage. It defies evolutionary logic. With respect, High General, Tezek countered, the humans appear to defy many of our assumptions. They developed faster than light travel only 80 years ago, yet their technological progression has outstripped our own by centuries. The Imperial scientist, a female named Zexra with specialized sensory appendages, leaned forward. The Supreme Commander's analysis aligns with my research. Humans evolved in isolation on a highly competitive world. Their societies waged war against themselves for millennia before achieving unification. They built their military not for conquest but survival. Empress Silara's antennae twitched thoughtfully. If their military doctrine prioritizes defense over expansion, what are our options? Imperial diplomat Krisk, his carapace adorned with markings from dozens of alien cultures, cleared his throat. Your Luminance, I believe we must attempt direct diplomatic contact. The humans have not pursued our retreating forces, suggesting they may be open to peaceful resolution. Diplomacy. With a species that destroyed our fleet, High General Vrask scoffed. Precisely, because they destroy our fleet, Krisk replied calmly. A species with overwhelming military advantage that chooses not to pursue total victory is one that values restraint. This is an opportunity. Silence fell over the chamber as the Empress considered. Finally, she spoke. Supreme Commander Tezek, you witnessed their capabilities firsthand. Do you believe diplomacy is possible? Tezek's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a gesture of careful consideration among his kind. I believe it is our only option, Your Luminance. We cannot match their military might. If they chose to retaliate with their full force, the Dominion would fall within weeks. The council chamber erupted in alarmed clicking and hissing. The Empress raised a claw for silence. Then we shall attempt diplomacy, she declared. Supreme Commander Tezek, you will lead this mission. Take our fastest diplomatic vessel, Imperial diplomat Krisk will accompany you with a team of our finest cultural specialists. Your objective is to negotiate peace at almost any cost. Tezak bent into a full bow, touching his primary antennae to the floor. As you command, Your Luminance. The United Earth Government Emergency Council convened in Geneva 3 days after the Kelveri attack. President Sofia Alvarez stood at the head of the circular table, reviewing the holographic battle projections with her military and diplomatic advisors. So these Kelveri had no idea what they were getting into, she summarized, brushing a strand of gray hair from her face. Admiral Winters nodded. Based on their tactics and subsequent retreat, they clearly expected minimal resistance. Captain Chen's Border Patrol Squadron gave them a rude awakening. And now? The President asked. Our quantum sensors have detected a single vessel departing their territory, Admiral Winters replied. Smaller than their warships, minimal weapons signatures. It appears to be heading directly for the Sol system. Secretary of Extraterrestrial Affairs, Dr. Omar Mbeki, leaned forward. A diplomatic mission, most likely. Our defeat of their forces must have triggered a significant political crisis in their hierarchy. If they're coming to talk, we should hear them out, said Vice President Cho. First contact situations are delicate, even when they begin with hostilities. President Alvarez considered this. Humanity's unified government was relatively young, just over 60 years old. The trauma of the final war had finally pushed Earth's nations toward genuine cooperation, and the discovery of alien life had accelerated that unity. But the instinct for self-preservation remained deeply ingrained in human psychology. Admiral, what's your recommendation? She asked. Maintain our current defense posture. The 7th Fleet should remain at Proxima Centauri, and I want the 1st and 3rd Fleets in the Sol system during any diplomatic engagement. We negotiate from strength or not at all. Dr. Mbeki frowned. Such an overt military presence could be perceived as threatening. It's meant to be, Winters replied bluntly. The Kelveri attacked without provocation. They need to understand that further aggression would be suicidal. President Alvarez nodded slowly. I agree with both perspectives. We'll meet their diplomatic vessel, but we'll do so with appropriate security measures. Dr. Mbeki, assemble your first contact team. Admiral Winters, position your fleets as you see fit, but keep them at a respectful distance during the actual talks. As the meeting adjourned, President Alvarez remained, studying the holographic image of the insectoid Kelveri. Humanity had prepared for first contact for generations, but no one had anticipated it would begin with an unprovoked attack. Still, if there was an opportunity to avoid interstellar war, she would take it. 7 days later, the Kelveri diplomatic vessel Voice of Reason approached Earth's orbital defense perimeter. Supreme Commander Tezak stood on the command deck, his exoskeleton now adorned with the silver markings of a diplomatic envoy, a role he never imagined holding. They're hailing us, the communications officer reported. Tezak nodded to Imperial diplomat Krisk, who stepped forward. Open the channel. The view screen activated, showing the human female with dark skin and close-cropped silver hair. Kelveri vessel, this is Dr. Amara Singh of the United Earth Government. We acknowledge your diplomatic status and grant you approach clearance to Earth Orbital Diplomatic Station Alpha. Please maintain your current speed and trajectory. Krisk bowed slightly. We understand and comply, Dr. Singh. We come seeking peaceful resolution to our unfortunate first encounter. Dr. Singh's expression remained neutral. We look forward to productive discussions. Transmitting approach vectors now. The communication ended. They're being cautious but not overtly hostile, Krisk observed. A positive sign. Tezak wasn't so sure. As their ship followed the designated path, the sensors detected what the humans had deliberately allowed them to see, a formation of 60 warships maintaining station near Earth's moon. Even this small fraction of human military might dwarf anything the Kelveri could now field. This is not a negotiation between equals, Tezak muttered. We come as supplicants. Krisk's antennae twitched in acknowledgement. Perhaps. But remember, Commander, any species that achieves such technological supremacy without succumbing to expansionist impulses might possess psychological traits we can leverage. Their restraint suggests values we can appeal to. Hours later, the Kelveri delegation entered the orbital diplomatic station, a massive rotating structure with artificial gravity and atmospherically controlled sections for various species. The human delegation awaited them in a large chamber with a circular table, symbolic of equal standing despite the reality of their power imbalance. Dr. Singh introduced her team, a mix of diplomats, military officers, and xenobiologists. Admiral Winters was present, her uniform adorned with insignia that Tezak's cultural briefing identified as representing the highest military authority. After formal introductions, Supreme Commander Tezak took the initiative. "The Kelveri Dominion acknowledges our grave error in attacking your colony," he began, using the formal diplomatic clicks that Krisk had taught him. "We operated on flawed intelligence and assumptions about your species that proved catastrophically incorrect." Dr. Singh nodded. "We appreciate your candor, Supreme Commander. However, you must understand our concern. Unprovoked aggression against civilian settlements is not how peaceful civilizations introduce themselves." "A valid observation," Tezak conceded. "For 15 centuries, the Dominion has expanded through this sector, encountering minimal resistance. Our cultural and military doctrine evolved around this reality. Your species represents something we have never encountered, a technologically superior force with no apparent expansionist agenda." Admiral Winters leaned forward. "Let me be clear, Commander. Humanity unified after nearly destroying ourselves in war. We expanded to the stars cautiously, focusing on self-sufficiency rather than territorial gains. But make no mistake, we will defend ourselves with overwhelming force if threatened again." The implicit threat hung in the air. Tezak felt his secondary heart rate increase, a physiological response to danger. "We seek no further conflict," he assured them. "The Empress has authorized me to negotiate terms for peaceful coexistence." Dr. Singh exchanged glances with her colleagues. "We're willing to discuss such terms. What does the Dominion propose?" Imperial diplomat Krisk stepped forward. "The Kelveri Dominion offers formal recognition of human sovereignty over your current territories. We propose establishing a demilitarized buffer zone between our spheres of influence and opening regulated trade relations." "And what do you expect in return?" Admiral Winters asked sharply. "Merely peace," Tezak replied honestly, "and perhaps in time, a cultural and technological exchange that might benefit both our species." The negotiations continued for 3 days. The humans were thorough, probing the Kelveri social structure, history, and intentions with disconcerting precision. They seemed particularly interested in the Dominion's treatment of subjugated species, a topic that caused visible discomfort among the Kelveri delegation. On the final day, President Alvarez herself arrived to formalize the agreement. The terms were, in Tezak's assessment, remarkably fair given the power disparity. The Kelveri would withdraw from 3 contested systems, establish the proposed buffer zone, and begin a phased demilitarization of their border regions. In exchange, humanity would not seek reparations for the attack and would establish limited trade relations. As the formal document was being prepared, President Alvarez approached Tezak privately. "Supreme Commander, I hope you understand something fundamental about humanity," she said quietly. "What might that be, Madam President?" "We don't seek conquest. We never have. But we've learned through bitter experience to prepare for the worst while hoping for the best." She studied his alien features. "The force that defeated your fleet represents less than 1% of our military capability. We maintain this strength not because we wish to use it, but because we never again want to be vulnerable." Tezak's compound eyes blinked slowly, a philosophy the Dominion would be wise to consider adopting. President Alvarez smiled slightly. "Indeed, and perhaps that's the beginning of understanding between our species." Later, as the Kelveri diplomatic vessel departed Earth's orbit, Tezak stood at the viewport, watching the blue-green planet recede. The Dominion had encountered something unprecedented, a species that had channeled its evolutionary aggression, not into expansion, but into defense and innovation. Imperial diplomat Krisk joined him at the viewport. "You seem contemplative, Supreme Commander." "I am considering the future of our species," Tezak replied. "For 15 centuries, the Dominion has defined itself through conquest and subjugation. We believed this was the natural order, the strong dominating the weak. And now we have encountered a species stronger than ourselves, who chose restraint over retribution." Tezak turned to face the diplomat. "Perhaps true strength lies not in domination, but in wisdom. The humans could have annihilated us, yet they offered partnership." Krisk's antennae twitched in agreement. "The Empress will be pleased with the treaty terms, given the alternatives." "Yes," Tezak agreed, "but I believe our encounter with humanity offers something more valuable than peace terms. It offers a new perspective on civilization itself." As their ship engaged its warp drive, Tezak wondered how the Dominion would evolve in the coming centuries. The humans had demonstrated that technological supremacy need not lead to imperial ambition, that a species could channel its resources toward defense and innovation rather than conquest. It was a profound lesson, delivered through the shock of military defeat. The Kelveri had sought to conquer a seemingly minor species, and instead found themselves humbled by a civilization that had transcended the very impulses that drove the Dominion. Such was the irony of first contact. The Kelveri had intended to teach humans their place in the galactic hierarchy, only to discover that humans had already defined it for themselves, not as conquerors, but as guardians of their own future, prepared for any threat yet committed to peace whenever possible. It was, Tezak reflected, a worthy model to aspire to. Perhaps in time, the Dominion might evolve toward such wisdom, if humanity gave them the chance to do so.